Hey everyone, this is Bill Krieger from the Veterans Archives podcast, where we preserve and share the incredible stories of our nation's heroes. Catch us every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Wreaths Across America Radio, or stream anytime on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Really, anywhere you choose to get your podcast, you should be able to find us. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on social media to help us reach more veterans and supporters. We are a nonprofit, and this service is completely free for veterans. Every story matters, and every voice deserves to be heard. Spread the word, honor our heroes, and join us on this mission. Follow, share, and tune in, because their story should never be forgotten. Learn more at veteransarchives.org. We'll see you there. Today is Monday, October 20th, 2025. We're talking with Lewis Goldstein, who serves in the United States Army. Currently serving.
Correct.
All right. Well, thanks for meeting me here this afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure.
All right. We'll dive right in with the toughest question first. When and where were you born?
So I was born in St. Louis Park, June 28th. My parents got to pick the date because I'm born at midnight. So half of me is June 28th. The other half of me is June 29th. My dad got to be asked the question which day, and so they chose the 28th simply because that was the day my mom was in labor. The joke always has been it shorted her a day in the hospital because they considered that a full day of labor. So it's always been, instead of getting her full 3 days, my dad shorted her a day on accident.
Uh-huh. Now, did you grow up in the same town?
No, so at the time, my family lived in New Brighton, which is a suburb of Minneapolis. So we lived in New Brighton. We were there until I was in kindergarten. And then by that time, my parents had my brother. So we moved out to Hutchinson, Minnesota, because my dad and his dad, my grandpa, had owned a beer distributing business. So my dad got an opportunity to work with his dad in a town called Glencoe. And then so we lived in Hutchinson. He worked in Glencoe, but my dad was always the beer guy, so that's why we moved out to Hutchinson.
Really? Did that make you popular later in life?
It was kind of a curse. I don't want to say a curse. It was a blessing and a curse. I got really cool summer experiences because in the summer when I wasn't doing sports, my summer jobs were helping my dad deliver kegs and beers to the local bar, and I got to meet all the people, and I got to meet everybody. I got to meet the old vets, and I got to talk to the old, townies and stuff like that. Much later in life, I realized, that was the day drinkers. Yeah. So I grew up with a wide variety, but I loved the job, and it was a lot of fun. It was kind of a catch-22 in the sense of, my dad was always very worried about, he didn't want to have his kids be the drinkers or be providing. He was worried about his job and some of the perceptions of that.
Right.
So it was kind of one of those things where it was great to be the beer man's kid because everybody knew my dad, knew my grandpa, we all knew everybody. But it was also kind of stunky because I always had to make sure that it wasn't me providing anything on the grounds of I didn't want to get my dad in trouble or get the business in trouble and stuff like that. And I wanted to play sports. And that time it was, you got caught with alcohol, it was an immediate 2-week suspension. And I was like, I don't want to miss sports, so I didn't do it.
Yeah. So you just had one brother then?
So I had a brother and a sister. So
okay.
My brother is born, we're almost Irish twins. He's born in September of 86. I'm born in June of 85, so we're pretty close.
Yeah.
We grew up essentially almost twins for a long time, except for then at one point he sprouted past me. He's 6'2", and we couldn't be more opposite career paths in life type of a thing. But we're really good friends. And then my sister, who's 6 years younger than me, was born once we moved out to Hutchinson.
Okay. So you're
I'm the oldest. Oldest of three.
Gotcha. So you're a take charge kind of guy anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of how it fell apart for me.
Yeah, I got you. It's funny. My younger brother was so different from my sister and I. We always claimed that he was like the mailman's kid.
Yeah, we joke all the time with my sister that, she was something different from us. We always used to tell her that, well, my mom and dad had another kid, but that one died, so this was you. We would do stuff like that. We were ruthless.
Well, yeah, you have to be.
It was two brothers. I mean, we were so close. We were basically each other's best friend for a long time.
And what was it like growing up like that then?
It was cool. His stuff was green, my stuff was blue. That was kind of how we kept ourselves apart for a long time. But we played sports together for a long time. There was about a point kind of towards middle school where we kind of drifted off into different things that we interest. My parents were always cool with supporting us into the things that we wanted to do. What is it you want to do type stuff. And then we went and would go do those things. So I did a lot of sports. My brother he did sports, but then he kind of drifted off into some other stuff. He did a lot of robotics, not robotics. That's my son. He did a bunch of different project stuff, project-based things, and got into some different world. He did a lot of academic stuff, so like he went to college early and stuff like this, and I barely passed high school. So we went down different paths.
Yeah, I can see. So, you talk a little bit about sports. So, what were the sports that you played in school?
So I always did sports as long as I can remember. From pictures of t-ball as soon as you could walk. We're from Minnesota, so as soon as you can walk, you can skate. So I've always done hockey. I've always done football. I've always done baseball. So those are my 3 main sports. But I dabbled in everything. I mean, I remember being in wrestling, tried wrestling for a while. I've done all the park and rec tennis courses. You name the sport, if it was offered, we went and did it, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
As I got older, I really ended up focusing in on football. My town was that's what we were known for, was our football team. And then hockey, and then baseball. So I went from football in the fall, hockey in the winter, baseball in the spring and the summer, and then rinse and repeat and keep going.
So there was no time to not
No, there was
something.
no break. You were always doing one of the 3, or something in between. So, but that was the big ones. And then in high school, I lettered in all 3 of them.
Okay.
So that was kind of fun.
Yeah. So you barely made it through high school, but
Barely
you made it
high
through.
school. Made it through. So the joke. So my wife actually and I are married from high school, so we're high school sweethearts. And
No way.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's another story. But they so my thing was in high school. So I kind of had a weird high school experience in the sense of I went to high school my freshman year. My sophomore year, I took a study abroad program, and I went and lived in Istanbul, Turkey, for an entire school year, and that was September of 2001. So my 9/11 was spent in Istanbul, Turkey, learning that experience from that perspective. So I missed my entire sophomore year with all my friends, and I'd been K through 12 with everybody, and then came back, did my senior year at high school. And when I say when I barely survived, is there was 232 or so in my class, and I'm very much 10th from the bottom in terms of GPA overall. And my report card is either you're an A because I liked you as an instructor, or I liked your class, or it's a D or a straight F. The joke, my wife always talks about it, and I joke because my friends know what it is. I have the distinction of failing 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade art, and never taking another art class again. And I've never passed an art class ever.
So suffice to say, you're not going to take art classes when you
art and me did not get along at all.
I got to say, it's the first. I've never heard of anyone failing art class.
Oh, you fail art by simply not doing it. I was just a stubborn SOB is what I was.
Yeah, I got you. So I want to back up a little bit, though. So Istanbul, Turkey.
Yes.
On 9/11.
Yes.
And I have to think there were probably some people there that were kind of celebrating that.
Not so much where I was at. So I was in the metropolitan that is Istanbul. So Istanbul is right on the Bosphorus. I was on the European side, and I had a lot of friends on the Asian side as the year progressed. But when I had just gotten there, I had just met my family. I didn't know Turkish. The whole reason I ended up in Turkey was because my grades weren't good enough to go to Germany. So they said, you could go to these programs, and my options were Russia, Turkey, Thailand, or anywhere in South America. And I chose Turkey because I was interested in the Ottoman Empire at that point in time.
Yeah.
So I was very interested in that history. That's how I ended up in Turkey, because that's what I chose. But what I experienced was, at that time, this was before Erdogan. Erdogan hadn't won his first election yet. But the people that I met were very like, this does not represent the Muslim religion. This is not us. These are radicals that we detest and denounce. We want nothing to do with these people. We love America. Make sure Mr. Bush doesn't nuke us was something that people would tell me all the time.
Yeah.
They wanted it known to me once I divulged that I was American, that they didn't stand for that they didn't agree with it, that was a perversion of their religion in a sense. So I never, in the year I was there, I never really experienced any disdain towards me as an American, or disdain at that time. But what was interesting at that time was, from September to about November, a little bit into December, it was still front page news in Turkey. By about that, after Thanksgiving, for my calendar, which they don't have Thanksgiving, it's just my calendar internally, was that 9/11 was just a thing that had happened. Like it was back back page news. It wasn't front page anymore. It wasn't the topic of conversation. So actually, when I came back later that year in 2002 in June, I got hit with it like was still had to happen yesterday, because that's how our country was dealing with it. So I had a weird, cultural experience coming back to the United States and being like, oh, 9/11 actually is still a thing. Like, it was obviously I got used to it, but it was a very weird connection type of a thing, because I hadn't really talked about it much when I lived in Turkey, because it wasn't the topic we talked about.
Yeah.
But it was cool. It was a great year. I had a lot of fun that year. Learned a lot of things.
It's really interesting, especially Turkey. You don't hear a lot of people talk about Turkey.
Not a Turkey. And that was one of the reasons I was, at that time, I had an interest in learning Turkish, for the sense of I thought I was going to pursue learning that as a language. Mm-hmm. I was fluent. I've lost it now. I haven't spoken it in years.
Right.
But I also knew it was it's a country that neighbors Iraq, and I knew that Iraq was going to be a country that we'd had interest in. Obviously, I'd watched the first Desert Storm and Shield the first time, and we knew that we still had a political interest there. So learning Turkish was something I thought I could bring to the Army, but I ultimately didn't do that.
Right.
But it was a thought process at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So I wanted to ask you, mentioned like just briefly that you had like an interest in the Ottoman Empire. Like, have you had an interest like in military history since a young age, or?
Oh, yeah. No, it's kind of been, I had a lot of friends in high school, in my town where I grew up. We talked military stuff. Like, military history was kind of like something we talked about random all the time. I've always been fascinated by the history of different empires, and how history in general has always been an interest to me. Mm-hmm. If I think back to that particular time, I had been going from the Romans to the Byzantines to the Ottomans, and then the Ottoman crash after the First World War, and some of that history stuff was of interest to me.
Right.
City of Istanbul, Constantinople, and I got to see a lot of stuff. Like, I went to Topkapi Palace. I went to see Hagia Sophia and got to see it. I went to the Grand Bazaar. I donned the Galatasaray Tower. I'd seen the Bosphorus Strait. I've seen the Galatasaray Strait. I've seen, got to walk the same place that the Crusaders walked. I mean, I got to see all that history, so that was really cool.
Yeah.
And I got to see that when I was 16 and got to live there for a year, so that was interesting.
Now, is it true that was a larger empire than the Roman Empire at one time? So
by the time the Byzantines were at their height, they were, if not as large, because they claimed the western half for a while.
Yeah.
But they were in their own sense. And then the Ottomans, when they became the Ottomans, they were actually a bigger empire in the sense of the Roman Empire. So they were larger in terms of sheer ground that they covered or claimed to cover.
Well, it's interesting you bring up Constantinople, too, because my wife is Greek.
Okay. Yeah.
And,
you want to start a conversation in Turkey, just bring up... Now, it's weird, though, because they'll talk it, they get passionate about it, but when you talk to the people, I never got the sense of, like, they cared. Like, they cared, but they didn't... Like, they were like, whatever, they're Greek, who cares? But the governments, man, you talk to the governments, and there's a history that cannot be disentwined, because that history is yesterday's history, even if it's 200-300 years ago. That is yesterday history for those two.
Yes, and for the Greek people as well.
Oh, but understandably, when you look at some of the stuff that's going on, but even for the Turkish people, when you look at their war of independence with Ataturk and stuff like that, and how the Greeks occupied, and then even the peace treaty after the all the islands that are right there in the but you've got history that goes back in that area. How many different empires, how many different governments or societies have, quote, claimed it or left their mark in some way, shape, or form. So it's a very interesting historical place.
Yeah, fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, when you look at how far back the history goes.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you start going, you can't throw a stone and not hit something where somebody, 2,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago could have walked on. Or, if you go out on the Gallipoli or you go by where Troy was. I mean, I got to go down to Izmir and see some of that stuff, and that was, And then you go to the Black Sea, and then you want to talk about the Crimean War and the Russians and all that stuff. You can go down that rabbit hole for days with them.
Oh yeah, it's all right there.
And it's all living history to them.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of crazy.
So in high school then, were you the potential kid? Like, and I say that in the nicest way possible. Like, your guidance counselor would be like,
100%.
Lewis has great potential.
He could do whatever he wants. He just doesn't do what
he's supposed to.
Yeah, no, that was a common theme.
Yeah.
I was, like I had said, now I would look back and be like, oh, that's probably ADHD, probably some of that, because I really just looked at it as like, if I liked your topic, I was in. So that would be like woodshop class, you know, any of the gym classes. You know, different teachers would incite me about different ways that they taught or how I connected with their teaching method. So it could be English one semester, but then the next semester I hated the English teacher, so I didn't care about English. But the semester before, I cared. Like, it was kind of a weird dynamic, so my grades were kind of all over the place. But yeah, guidance counselor would always, that would be a common theme. They'd be like, yeah, he could do it if he just applied himself.
If he would just do it.
But I especially confused my guidance counselors because, you know, I did the foreign exchange student thing. I did that as a sophomore. Like, I'd done all these weird things, you know, in the small town that I lived in. I mean, Hutchinson, Minnesota at the time was just barely over 10,000. Now it's like 15,000.
Yeah.
But you didn't do that a lot. You didn't do a lot of that stuff. And then I was the one who did, and then I was still there for 2 years. But I came back in June of 2002, and I joined the Army in November of 2002. So I was only home for a couple of months before I joined the Army.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So did you join like on a split option?
Yeah, so I was a little split off. So my whole thing was, I'd always known I was going to join the Army. Like, that was kind of something I kind of had decided. I just didn't know when.
Yeah.
I just didn't know when or how. But I had always kind of, I can't recall a specific time or age when I like definitively decided like I'm joining the Army, other than when I came back. So, let me rephrase that. 9/11 solidified that I was going to join the Army in some way, shape, or form. Like, that was done. Like, I knew that was going to happen. I just had to get back and figure out how to do it, and I didn't know what to do.
But you didn't come from a military family.
No. So I was the first in a generation. My grandma was a WAC. My grandpa had been in the World War II generation. Yeah. My dad's dad had done the National Guard thing, hadn't deployed, but had been in the National Guard. He didn't really talk a lot about his military service, but his was more like Nebraska National Guard in the 60s, 70s, where it's more like the good old boys club thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he did it. No one's going to take away that service, but it was more of like, I'm in the National Guard because I'm in the National Guard and I don't have to do the other side of the Army type of a thing.
Right.
So that was more of how that's always been explained to me. And he never really, before he passed, my grandpa never really spoke to me. Even after I joined, he was alive for a few more years after that, but he never really spoke to me about his service. But it was always just, you know, 50s, 60s, 70s National Guard life, which was different than the Guard now. And then my grandma was a WAC. My grandpa, who passed away when my mom was 11, I never met. He'd been in the Pacific Theater, PFC, you know, conscript, in and out type of a thing. So there was, besides me, there was no one else in my family who had a military connection of any kind. Okay. The closest my dad came, he had a conversation with a Marine recruiter in the early 80s. He tells the story as the Marine recruiter asked it, what do you want from the Marines? He goes, an education. And the guy said he closed up his book, paid for his lunch, and just walked out the door. I was like, wow. All right. So that's the way. So when I joined, it was one of those things. I knew I was going to do it, just didn't know when. And because I didn't really have a track on what I want, like college wasn't what I was thinking about. I wasn't going to do any of that. I was like, I'm just going to do the Army. Army's easy. I can do this. I can do that. So when I came back, I showed up to school one day. In the very first 2 weeks, there used to be the old block TVs that would be up in the hallway. Mm-hmm. And our school had this, we were distinct because we had this 1/4 mile long hallway, which was just ridiculous. Wow. So I was walking down to one of my classes, looked at the monitor and said, Army testing ASVAB today, this time. If you do, you will miss. We were on a block system, so there was 4 blocks. So I got to miss 3 of my 4 blocks of instruction.
Really broke your heart, huh?
And I was just like, wait, so what do I got to do? Oh, you got to take this test. You have to take this test to get in the Army. And I get to miss 3 classes today? Yes. Sweet. Where do I go? What room is it in? I walked in, had no clue, didn't even know what the ASVAB was. Walked in, had a little sheet that said, are you interested in the military? I was a recruiter's dream. Yes, 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 to everything that they would want to know. Uh-huh. Took the test, winged it. No clue what was on that test. Just absolutely just like, sure, B, C, I don't know. Whatever the answer might be. Could have cared less. Scored well enough. And then basically they came over to me. And I chuckle now because my date of enlistment or my date of joining is November 4th. And the only reason I'm in November 4th is because I was his quota for the month. I could have easily joined in October, but He held me over to MEPS until I was the first day available in November because that was the easiest one.
If you have ever been a recruiter,
he played that
game.
Oh, he played that game splendidly.
Yes.
Like looking back, I'm like, well played, my son, well played. But yeah, so I was that quick. I was like, yep, good. I was 17. I had no background. I had nothing in a background for the guy to like. I had no criminal record, so he always joked with me. He goes, "You're the easiest thing I'll ever fucking recruit."
Right.
went to my parents, said, sign this. My dad's like, sure. I mean, they'd already just sent me away to Turkey for a year, and it wasn't going to be a hard sell to sell at 16. That, hey, at 17, can I join the Army? It wasn't really a hard sell.
Yeah.
They signed the paperwork, and then I did split up. So I started off drilling that January and did the drills, and then went to basic, came back for senior year, and went to AIT, and then I was in.
So where'd you go to basic?
Fort Leonard Wood, because I joined as a combat engineer, and I was a knucklehead. I turned down what I've calculated to be somewhere in the range of like $60,000 to $80,000. I was offered a $20,000 signing bonus and like $1,000 kicker to my GI Bill to be a cook. I was offered a similar thing to be a truck driver, and then I was offered some variations of that. So if you add up everything I was offered, I turned all of that down and said, I don't want any of those jobs. I don't want to be a cook. I don't want to be a truck driver. I don't want any of this. I said, what else do you got? And I'll never forget it. The guy at MRAPs, annoyed at me because I wasn't giving him what he wanted, picks up an old school 3-ring binder, one of those, like, and it is the thick, heavy, like, big ones. And he literally goes, boom, throws it down in front of me and said, and he points, he flips it open. He goes, you tell me. And it was just a list of different jobs. And he had flipped it open to combat engineer, and I read the combat engineer. Demolitions and explosive experts, clearing of breaching of obstacles, working in minefields and the demolition of mines. I want that job. And he looked at me and goes, there's no bonus, there's no kicker. And I go, that job. And he goes, there's no bonus, there's no kicker. And I go, that job. And he's like, you're an idiot. Sign here. Straight up was the conversation of how I became a combat engineer.
But Fort Leonard Wood, I spent about 5 months there. Decent, but very difficult to be there sometimes.
Yes. Yeah. Fort Leonard Wood has grown on me because it's the home of the engineer. So I've been there. In my military career now, I have spent probably in totality 3 years of my life there. Yeah. In one way, shape, or form between classes or something. It's grown on me. It is the home of the engineer. It's got history for us. But it wasn't bad. I mean,
they still have that little German restaurant outside.
Yes, they do.
Oh my God!
I still go there whenever I'm there.
That food is so good.
So good. It's like a rite of passage. You have to go there. Yeah. Like it's something you have to do.
There's that place, and then there's the place on the highway in the mountains. It's a barbecue place.
Yes. Oh, I can't remember the name of it.
You know what I'm talking about, though. It looks like you wouldn't want to eat there.
Yeah, but it's the best barbecue you're ever going to get.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about. I can like picture it, but I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, loved it down there.
Just same with the German place. I can picture exactly how to get there, but I can't remember the name of it right now. But,
yeah, my son actually came down to visit me when I was there, and we went to the German place.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, you can put on some pounds.
You can easily do it there. That's what's so cool about Leonard Wood is because Leonard Wood's got the home of the MPs, the engineers, the chem, and then transportation is also there. And you get all these people who come back and they bring all these places they've seen in the military and they bring it back. And then you get their families that they, you marry a Korean woman or something like that, or other places you've been, and they bring all that culture back to Leonard Wood. It's kind of weird because it's in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, Missouri, in the middle of the Ozark Mountains, and in a place where like it's the quintessential, like this is some really crappy terrain, Army base. It's the quintessential Ozark Mountain, nothing should be here, no reason for anyone to be here, and the Army picked it there. And yet it's this weird melting pot of all these cultures from all these places that the Army's experiences spider off into. It's kind of weird place.
It's a small southern town is what it is.
It really is.
But it doesn't feel that way.
It is not a southern town.
No.
Once you get in, it has there's portions of it that are old school southern, but so many people live off that base. Like that, St. James, St. Roberts, they don't exist without Fort Leonard Wood. They just don't. They in Waynesville, they don't. Those three towns, they do not exist without Leonard Wood being there.
So you go to basic in Leonard Wood. Talk me through what was your first impression when you got there? Now I know that a lot of guys go through like a reception for a few days, which is nothing like boot camp.
No.
Yeah. So talk to me about that.
So obviously having played 3 sports, I felt like I was physically fit too. So once I got there, I found it kind of. It feels dumb to say. I always call basic $1 million experience I would never pay a nickel to do again. Yeah. But it was great. I didn't really mind basic. Like I don't have like a horror stories. I've got fun stories from basic. But even in the moment, like I never really found basic to be like over the top. It was everything I expected it to be. Mm-hmm. People yelling at you for what they were doing, follow basic instructions. heavy encouragement to do everything you're already doing faster. And, as long as you listened to what was being told to you to do, it became pretty baseline. And then when you messed up or stepped out of line, you were corrected and brought back into line. And when you were in line, you were rewarded for being in line. It was like basic training to me at the time was pretty a straightforward thing. It was a weird time to be at basic in the history of, I didn't know it then, but looking back now, I mean, this is early 2000s. So I was in what was called hotel company, which doesn't exist anymore at basic. And it was we were the last company of hotel to go through because we were the end of the 9/11 surge. So everybody after 9/11 had joined. We were the last of that. So now when you go to basic at Leonard Wood, it's Alpha through Echo is all they have. We had all the way to hotel, and there had been in India before us, and they had already disbanded India, but we were the last of the hotel. So they've contracted all the way back up to just Echo now. Yeah. But at the time, this is summer of 2003 is when I went to basic. So we're talking, this is the end of the era where the drill sergeants just got done where they couldn't put hands on you. So that is a couple years in now. They are just transitioning into they can swear at you, but they can't swear at you. They can't degrade you anymore.
They can't call your mom names.
Right. They can't do that, but they can still kind of swear at you. But this is still in the era of the true smoke session. The true on. I remember going to basic and having what we call, make it rain. They would close up our bay windows and then they would smoke us until condensation from the ceiling came back down. I had a drill sergeant, his favorite thing when he was on CQ, again, things I learned later and could piece together. He would put CQ, he played CQ, he'd pull up a chair and he would put Metallica on. It was the only music we'd heard in forever. We didn't care, it was music.
Right.
And he would just smoke us to, the Metallica Black CD. And we would just, for the duration of that CD, we'd just do whatever workout he wanted us to do while he listened to music, and we had to do whatever he was telling us to do until it was muscle failure. And I was like, all right, Roger.
So does Metallica still make you sweat?
I still enjoy it. It's still a lot of fun, especially my deployment. We play Metallica all the time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that bad. Again, I think I was fine because I was in shape from sports. So I wasn't one of the smoke sessions they were rough. Don't get me wrong. I got my ass handed to me plenty of smoke sessions. I got my ass handed to me. And I would walk away from okay, that sucked. But I wasn't in a position where I was also learning how to be physical. So it wasn't anything I wasn't unaccustomed to from being in sports where, between football running gassers and hockey running skating gassers and then in baseball running the bases. I mean, it wasn't anything I hadn't.
You didn't have that obstacle over.
It wasn't anything I hadn't done through my coaches I had in different sports and, different ways of doing things. So it wasn't anything overly new. What was new was learning how to shoot the way the Army wants you, learning to work as a team in a different type of way than what a sports team does and stuff like that. Military movements and understanding, how to space yourself out and how to be responsible for others versus they kind of teach out in sports, but not the same way the Army does. So that was kind of a lot of where that came from.
Okay.
I think that was the biggest thing. Then leaving and then coming back the next summer was probably the hardest thing because I had to leave a group we'd started with and then come back in and then join a group that had already been together for their 9 weeks of basic training. And now we were coming in as the new guys and had to mesh with them to do AIT. And AIT for combat engineers at the time was 5 weeks, 4 weeks of training, 1 week of graduation. And we were still learning at that point in time, how to defuse mines and how to find mines and go through minefields. That was a lot of what we were learning at the time.
So talk to me a little bit about what it's like to take the split option, because you come back and you're in high school, right? But you've done all this other stuff.
That was weird. So it was interesting in the sense that I'd already been gone. Because when I left, so in my town, I'd gone through K through 12 was the same grade. When I graduated high school, I probably knew at least one detail about every person in our school, simply because we'd been together that long.
Right.
But when I had left, it was weird. So when I left to go to Turkey, and I missed the sophomore year, I missed a lot of things. I missed a lot of the stories that they told about their summers and their school year.
Yeah.
I didn't have that connection to them, so I was kind of out. But I was also a weird one. As much as I was a jock, I had friends in the band, I had friends in choir. I could kind of go around, and I never really belonged to any one group kind of thing.
Yeah.
But being back was interesting because, I was, I folded my socks weird and my friends made weird because I was just ingrained in me in that point in time. Like I can remember going to like the national anthem at the football games and I would stand at attention now. And my friends were like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm supposed to.
This is what you do.
No, yeah, granted, if I go back in hindsight, maybe I wouldn't have, but I still would have because at that point in time I didn't know no better.
Right.
So it was a little different. I don't know if I noticed a distinct difference. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had friends who asked me questions and were curious, but not to a great extent. Like they had known I had done it, but they didn't really know what it meant, type of a thing. So I'd tell them what it was. I'd tell them what happened. I'd tell them how it had went, and that would be kind of the end of it. And I don't really remember any major differences, mostly because from my perspective, having already been gone for my sophomore year, joining the Army, being gone my junior to senior year summer, wasn't any different than I'd already done as far as my friends knew, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So I still had to do all the sports, so it didn't really make that big of a difference.
And so basic training was how many weeks then for you?
So that was 9 weeks. I was there for a total of 10. Reception, 9 weeks, and then a couple extra days to like get out of there. But I was there for about a total of 10 weeks.
So you pretty much missed that summer.
Yeah. So school ended in like early June. I left middle of June. Like I left like 2 weeks later. Like I got a 2-week summer.
Yeah.
And then I left. I came back in August, and I was basically home 1 week before school started. And then I went right into school.
Okay.
So that was my summer.
Yeah. Woohoo.
And then when I graduated, I didn't go back until August to keep in time with when I would have been graduating otherwise.
Okay.
So I had a couple months break there.
Yeah, so you got kind of a senior summer then.
Yeah, I got a kind of a senior summer because I didn't apply for jobs. I didn't apply for college because I knew I was going to go back to AIT. So I wasn't in the mood to try. So I never applied to a college out of high school, or I never applied to, I had jobs, so I just kept doing what I was doing. Between what I was doing at that time, I was working for Target. I kept that job, and I was doing odds and end jobs for my dad in the beer business. So between those two things, and then I coached the hockey team for a year with my dad, I had things keep me busy.
Okay. So then you hop on a plane, you fly back down to Missouri?
Fly back down to Missouri, complete AIT, 4 weeks of training, I was there for 6 weeks. 1 week of reception, 4 weeks of training, 1 week of graduation, and that was the end of that.
Well, you seem like a kind of guy that would do this, but I have to ask, like, you got there, and it's got to be tough, right? Because, like you were saying, these people had already bonded through their experience in basic training. But at some point, did you go like accepted into the group?
Yes, I think we did. There was a period because what happened for us is when we got there, the company that we joined had waited for 2 weeks for us, so their entire basic had been extended for 2 weeks while they waited for all of us that were the split ops guys.
Oh, that makes you
come
popular
on.
already.
Oh man, we were already popular because they had just completed basic, but then for 2 weeks they just sat around and marked time.
Oh.
And whatever the drill sergeants could get them to do to stay busy, I can't imagine how many stupid details they did or whatnot.
Painting rocks.
Just waiting for us to get there because they couldn't move on with their training until we were in.
Right.
So there was a period when we got to the first basic training where there was some initial grumbles of whatever, but it honestly disappeared pretty quickly because once we all got going, it meshed pretty quickly. I would say even though it was 4 weeks, within a week we were fine.
Yeah.
I think after that we kind of figured it out, like we made it work, especially because I was a 12 Bravo, so like basic training at the time was 12 Bravo broke off this way and the 12 Charlies broke off that way, so there was only, there was half of us went this way and half of us went that way. So we only really saw half of the company the whole time we were there. So,
okay.
So the Bravos meshed with the Bravos and the Charlies meshed with the Charlies, and we did our things and we came back in the evening and then we would sleep and then we'd go off and do it again.
Gotcha. So at the end of that then, did you come home again or did you just go to your first duty station?
No, so I joined the reserves.
Okay.
So to do split ops, I had to join the reserve of the Guard. So I joined the reserve. And my reasoning at the time is comical now, but it made sense to me then, was I was going to do the reserves, get, quote, 2 years of high-speed training. Boy, did I not understand that process at the time. And then I would go active duty. That was going to be my plan.
Right.
I was going to come in, I was going to be in the Army for 2 years. I'd come out of AIT. I'd go straight to active duty. And that was going to be my life. That was going to be what I was going to go and do. That is not what happened, however. So I did the complete boot thing. And so I got back, I started dating my now wife when I was a junior. She was a sophomore. Mm-hmm. So at the end of AIT, when I'd already graduated high school and she was still in her senior year, I did the whole propose to her after AIT. Textbook
boot.
It's even worse than that. Let's
get the whole story on this.
Let's just go down the whole boot.
But let's caveat it with, you don't regret it.
No, I don't regret it. We're still together. We got 3 kids. Been doing everything together. She survived 2 deployments. I picked the winner. I did all the right things in picking who I picked, but she stood by me during my lows and my highs. She's been there for me, but could not have done it any more boot. And I have paid that price. It is constantly brought up. Like I've had to redo it. I've had to, my kids make fun of me for it. Oh, it's a constant running joke. So basically, from the perspective of the boot, I did it it might be the quintessential boot story, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
So I wrote a letter to a parent, said, hey, I'm going to marry your daughter, blah, blah, blah. I wrote a letter to my parents, said, I don't give a fuck what you think I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. So that was that divide.
So you're making friends.
I made friends right off the bat. Mom and dad, suck it up. This is what I'm doing. Hey, future in-laws, I love your daughter. Can I marry her? Get their permission. We're good. Cool. I was 18. So 18, what money do I have? So it's the Walmart ring. My mom gets off the old internet print off, sent me that in the mail, picked this one, I circled the one I want. She bought it from Walmart for me. She comes, so when the family comes, my girlfriend, now wife, comes down with my family. So it's my mom, my dad, my grandma, my brother, and my sister, and our foreign exchange student from Thailand who's been in my house for all of 5 days. They drive down in an old school minivan.
Oh my God.
From Minnesota down to Leonardwood. They get there. So I'm in uniform, all these other things, right? At the end of the ceremony, blah, 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 we break off. And Leonardwood, we start walking around. Where do we go? The German POW Museum. Because that's, I don't know.
What more romantic
spot? So we start walking ahead of the group, and we get to a point, and I had, to this day, the way I'll tell the story and the way I always tell it is, I had a speech. I had a whole, something speech. I had something. Right. I don't remember what that is because of what happened. So I get to the point. Now my wife, she is even though I'm in the Army and we know we don't like to break the rules, she's more of a rule follower than I ever will be and ever has been. So I was in uniform, old greens, and I was stepping just off the sidewalk on the grass, and I was about to go to kneel. As I'm going to kneel and I'm putting my hand in my pocket to pull at the ring, I realized I forgot to test one thing. I can't kneel in this uniform. I literally feel like it's going to rip. And so I've got the, oh crap, I'm going to rip my pants. And I've got the, oh shit, I have the ring in my hand moment. And I've got her slapping me because I'm now standing in the grass, and she's all worried that I'm going to get in trouble because I'm in the grass, because they've been given the welcome speech from all the freaking sergeant majors saying, stay off my damn grass.
Right.
So all of this combined, so what is my confident, just finished up AIT, I can fucking find IE, mines, diffuse mines. I learned how to use a minesweeper. I can do all these things. All that confidence goes poof. So what do I muster up? I take the ring, I look at her in the face, and I go, you want it? It's all I can muster.
That's it?
That was it. That was all I could muster was a, do you want it? Her face goes to, we had talked about it, the idea of it, so it wasn't like a huge surprise, but right. She's in like a hoodie and like all this, like something else, and she does the whole like gets this panic face, turns, and starts walking away from me. So I grab her by her I call it a hoodie, she calls it something else, and I grab her and I turn her around and I go, now, this is where it goes full boot. And I have that moment to like collect myself, figure it out, like gain some composure, do something. Nah. Well, do you? It's all I got out. She said yes. My grandma thought I found it on the ground and thought it was a cool rig. I had to explain to her what it was.
Oh, no.
And that was how I got engaged. So,
wow.
Perfect boot story. Perfect boot story.
I think you deserve to be picked on
absolutely.
mercilessly for the rest of your life over that one.
100%. She did get my dad back, which was kind of funny. My dad's deathly afraid of heights. On the drive home, we stopped at the Arch in St. Louis, and it was one of those like semi-windy days. If you've ever been up in the Arch, where you can feel just breeze. But if you've been up there, they've got windows that are like maybe this big, this long, and like a ledge. So my dad was leaning over, looking out the window, and my now fiance pushes gives him a little shove. He was here and he was gone. And it was like a cartoon, like where you see the like little dust outline of where he had been. He'd moved that fast. Like he was there and he was gone, and everybody was like, "Did he just have a heart attack? Like what just?" That was all the same. That was all the same day. That was the whole thing.
What an amazing day!
That was a weird day, and of course, Pear, who is this foreign exchange student who's been with my family for all of 5 days, coming from Thailand, this is her experience. Like, welcome to America.
Right. Now she's gonna go home, and that's gonna be her.
Yeah, that was her first impression of everything. I was like, oh boy. So that's where I changed though, because after I got engaged, my wife gave me the whole, like, she wanted to go to college. Like, her thing was she was going to college. Like, I had never thought of college. College wasn't even on the radar. I wasn't going to do it. And she basically said, I'll marry you, but you have to go to college. I was like, okay, fine. What's 4 years? Yeah. I'll do 4 years, and then I'll go active duty.
Right.
So we ended up going to St. Cloud State. So we went to St. Cloud State.
So you went to high school together, and then you went to college together.
Yes.
And you're still together.
Yes.
That blows my mind.
So we went to college together. So we went to St. Cloud State together. That's where we had our first daughter. And we both did the fraternity and the sorority things. We did those things, and then we did all sorts of fun stuff there. I ended up figuring out that I actually liked school at that point. Like once I could start picking my courses, I really started figuring out that I actually liked education, which is weird. But I figured that out. During this whole time, like after I got back, I had missed my unit's first deployment by 3 months. So I graduated AIT in September, and they went to MOB in like July. But because of when I came off of out of school, they wouldn't catch me up to the MOB.
Yeah.
So I missed the first deployment. So I was like, all right, fine. So I missed that. And then, of course, this is still, Afghanistan, Iraq are hot and heavy. This is
pretty high up.
This is everyone's leaving out the door. Like, you're going from an era where, you have a deployment patch to, where's your deployment patch? Like, we're making that transition now.
Yeah.
So now it's about getting that deployment because you got to get that experience. So I'm in college. I survived college, never had to deploy, which was a frustrating mess at the time, but also annoying because I wasn't getting the experience.
Exactly.
I actually ended up missing 3 deployments. One I missed because it just got off-ramped. Another deployment, I was a specialist, and they were looking for a specialist, and it just turned out that they took the guy that they knew versus me, the nobody, which, salty as I was, made sense, whatever. And then another one, I got on, I was a specialist, I got promoted to sergeant, and they said, nope, we don't need a sergeant, we need a specialist. So I missed 3, so I've missed 4 deployments. So I made it to E6, to staff sergeant, before I ever got deployed the first time in 2010, and it just so aligned that I graduated college, got my bachelor's degree, and then I got my first deployment. But I was already a staff sergeant, and I'd been in for 8 years by the time I got my first deployment.
Wow.
Just because of how my particular course worked out.
And at this time, too, I can't make too fine a point on this. At this time, if you don't have a combat
you're
badge,
a nobody.
Well, not only that, but people think that you've been avoiding them.
You're shucking something. And I missed 3.
Yeah.
4 if you count the one that when my unit was already gone and they wouldn't let me catch up. 2, simply because 1, they picked somebody that they knew versus me, fine. Promoted, got to sergeant, didn't need a sergeant, wanted an E4, missed that. And then 1 just simply, I volunteered for it and it just never materialized.
Right.
So I missed 4 total deployments before I got my first actual deployment.
Yeah.
But that was one of those eras where, you had to start. If you were going up the ranks, and I made staff sergeant, I didn't have a deployment patch. There were questions I had a logical story. I could, hey guys, I've been here.
Right.
This is what I've been doing.
But the more you explain it, the worse it looks.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Weird. Yeah. It was an oddball thing, and I'd already had guys that were, they were in college, but they'd already deployed once, and then so there was things like that were happening. But I was just doing the reserve thing. So I would, I'd jump on whatever school they'd send me to. I would do things. I would volunteer when it came up, but my unit just never got called. And they'd been called up in 04 to 5, so their rotation didn't come up for a while.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of how it fell out for me at the beginning, right off the bat.
So 2010, so you graduate. What'd you get your degree in?
So I graduated in December of 09.
Okay.
And then at that point, we knew we were deploying. So I just stayed, I went on like basically ADOS orders with my unit.
Right.
And then we deployed in August of 10 is when we deployed, did a month of ramp up, and then we hit ground in October. Actually, what's the date? The day is the 20th. As of yesterday, my daughter, who is now turned 15, was born 48 hours after I got the country in Afghanistan. Said hello to my wife while she's in the delivery room, to our second daughter, and then I went out and was gone for 72 hours on my very first mission right off the bat. That was the start of my deployment.
Wow, that's craziness.
So that was how we started it, and then it was a year of route clearance. Doing that deployment was a year of route clearance.
Now, where were you at in Afghanistan?
Helmand province, Afghanistan. So if Helmand province at the time was the quote king of opium.
Yeah.
So we were at Camp Leatherneck, which was kind of a Marine base. Our Army battalion and headquarters was stationed in Kandahar, and we were the company that was kicked out to Camp Leatherneck to be the support for route clearance out there. So we did what was called at the time log pack route clearance. So we didn't run a route A to B, B to C, and just keep rotating through. We ran a point to point, making sure that there are these convoys for different log packs or different supply drops to Nowzad, Shagazi, Shikvani, Payne, these different places in Helmand province. We would run up and back. We basically run a convoy up there, they'd unload, and then we'd run them back through the Helmand Desert is what we were doing.
So you were busy.
Yes, we were on a pretty consistent run of we'd be gone for at least a week, be back for 72-ish hours, and then rinse and repeat. Some missions would be like, oh, it's going to be, quote, 3 days, and then we'd be gone for 7. Then it would be, 3 days, and then we'd be gone for 2. So sometimes it wasn't always consistent, but it was normally by the time you got back, you had about 72 hours of refit, and you go right back out.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty consistent rinse and repeat that we would do. The longest we were ever outside the wire for one mission, I think we hit 17-ish days, I think we hit.
But again, at least for me, like that makes the deployment
It went quick. It went real quick. It was a very busy deployment. Ups and downs as every deployment has. You have your ebb and your flow. But ultimately, it was a pretty quick deployment in the grand scheme of things. Like it feels long in the moment, but once you look back, you're like, whoa, that went.
Let's take a quick break.
Hey, listeners, we need your help to keep the Veterans Archives podcast going. We're a nonprofit dedicated to preserving the stories of our nation's heroes, and we provide this service completely free to veterans. Your support helps us record, share, and archive these incredible stories so future generations never forget the sacrifices made for our freedom. Every donation, big or small, makes a difference. Visit veteransarchives.org to contribute today. Help us honor their service by ensuring their voices are heard. And thank you for your support, and thank you to all the veterans who have served our country.
Fast.
Yeah.
So
Is there anything about that deployment that sticks out in your mind when you think about that deployment? This is something that you would talk about.
the fact that at the time we thought we were just doing our job, and at the time I really just figured it was what we were doing, but by the time we left, to describe what we did or what we accomplished and why it was so weird, was by the time we left, we had 3 different 2 or higher stars come down and tell my specific company, thank you for what you did in leaving. At the time I was like, okay, that's just cool, we're leaving country. And then I realized, like, no. Stars don't come and say goodbye to every unit that's leaving country. That's not a normal
that's not a thing.
And when I went back and got to like kind of sit with it a little bit, it's because ultimately what the company achieved and what our unit achieved between our 3 different platoons and the different leaders that we had, at the time we were told was something that hadn't been achieved before. We had over 300 IED finds or detonations, and we called getting hit a find. Mm-hmm. But we encountered over 300 plus IEDs in a year between 3 companies. and we didn't lose anybody. And we only, out of everyone we escorted, we only ever lost 3 people in the entirety of what we were doing. So getting between our hit and find ratio to only lose, and we lost one EOD tech, and we lost 2 soldiers from a CSB company we were escorting. That was it. But for our record, for what we did, our fines and everything we did, and we walked away with pretty much everybody walked away with almost I don't want to say everybody. We had over 50% of the company had a Purple Heart, if not multiple Purple Hearts by the time it was all said and done. So it was, once I had time to step back and realize what we accomplished, it was a pretty cool accomplishment considering what we did and the conditions we did it. And we were a reserve unit.
Yeah.
And we had to fight the whole, you're a reserve unit, you don't know what you're doing. I'm like, yeah, but we can do it. So we fought that too, and we got past that to the point where we were getting asked by name to be the unit that would go on that mission with them by the time we left. So
because you were trusted, and
so it was a cool thing. So I think the coolest part about that deployment was we brought everybody back. Everybody that was organic to my company came back.
Yeah,
that was a pretty cool accomplishment for everything that we were doing.
No small feat at all.
No, it's not. And all of the odds were against us.
Right.
It's sure great. We have awesome technology. I mean, technology was amazing. You have the insertion of the MRAPs, the mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle class of family of vehicles, was a huge improvement to our route clearance abilities. We had some really creative soldiers who found some really creative ways to make the to even enhance the technology we were already using. Husky, one of our Husky drivers, they created a rake. And they improved upon a rake design that the Army had furnished us with, and they improved on it. We created TTPs that we were able to share across the country at the time that allowed for people to make things happen. So it was a pretty cool experience at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, and I think you find that in Reserve and National Guard units, I believe more than active duty, is that you have these people who do things other than the Army, right?
Yes.
So they have these other ideas that they bring.
And this is what I will always kind of say it this way. I've been in the reserve my entire career. I've either been a TPU soldier, which is the 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year soldier, or I've been the AGR soldier, which is I'm the active duty reservist who ensures that the reserves can come in on the weekend and be trained.
Right.
Or that their training is ready to go. That's essentially the 2 different worlds I've lived in. But I've always been in the reserves. And what I will always say about reserve soldiers is they have a harder job than any active duty soldier, because as an active duty soldier, I respect and love what they do. But they do that one thing, and they do that one thing well. Are they the best combat engineers? Probably, because they can combat engineer like nobody else. Can they infantry like nobody else? Yes, they can infantry like nobody else. Can they truck drive like nobody else? Absolutely, they can truck drive like, and they know how to do it in an Army fashion. But my reserve guy, my reserve unit, we can combat engineer. We might not, it's going to take us a minute to catch up, but we can do it. We're not going to come out of the gate.
Right.
We're going to be minor league. Probably down at like single A ball to start. We gotta build us up for a little bit, but we learn real fast, and that's partly because this staff sergeant who is a combat engineer squad leader on the civilian side, he's running an entire network of trains at Northern Railroad something or other, maintenance requirements. So when he comes in, he brings a whole different perspective. And then this platoon leader is a combat engineer, but on the other side of the life, he's a branch manager for some large Fortune 500 company who has to make sure all this other stuff functions in the logistics. So they're bringing these different perspectives from not only their personal and their professional lives, but they're combining that with their military experience. And we might not start off looking great, but every reserve unit I've ever been with, and when we go to training rotations out of NTC or JRTC, at least in my personal experience, not gonna freaking sugarcoat it. We come off and we look like a bag of ass.
Right.
We gotta knock the rust off. We look dumb. We don't have the quote military bearing the same way, because that staff sergeant and that platoon leader might be buddies on the outside, and they might talk in a different way, and they might not look quote military.
Right.
But they have that relationship, and they can freaking get shit done because they can talk to each other in a way that I don't see active duty doing. And on top of that, they're so much quicker to adapt to stupid. Because not that active duty isn't adaptable, but in my personal experience, I see reserve units adapt faster.
Right.
because we're just used to it.
Oh, you have to.
Because we come in for a drill weekend and we have 48 hours, and when you break down those 48 hours, it really comes out to that in a total of 48 hours, I might ultimately have 16 hours worth of actual legitimate training time to accomplish a month's worth of what an active duty unit has. So I have 16 hours to accomplish a month's worth of training and stay at the same level of proficiency. We become pretty adaptive pretty quick. Guard reserve units have a really unique thing that we can come into the fight, especially when our experiences through Iraq, Afghanistan. We just have things to bring to the fight that an active duty unit doesn't bring to the fight.
Right.
Or it's different. I wouldn't say they don't bring. We just bring a different flavor.
Yeah. Yeah. I would even argue one is not better over the other. No, they're just different.
They're just different.
And now it's a force multiplier, right?
But the combination together of their professional proficiency at their specific task and our professional adaptability, and you combine the two of them together, no one is better than the other. Reserves aren't better than active, and active isn't better than reserves because we have a different skill set. But when you combine our skill sets and you put us in units together, we force multiply the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then you combine the whole American military model compared to some of our foreign countries and even some of our adversaries. It's even quadruple because of how we empower our soldiers to do down to the lowest level, where some countries, you take out that officer, they're dead in the water because they don't know what the hell to do. Whereas you can take everyone out in the chain of command except for that last private, and that last private will still have a modicum of an idea of what it is they're supposed to do and why it is they're doing it and how to possibly get it done, even if they're the last guy standing.
Oh, yeah.
Not many militaries can do that, and because of the way we try to create a team.
Well, and I think the Russians even said years ago one of the reasons they never attacked America is because we don't follow our own doctrine, right? I mean, we have doctrine, and everyone will tell you have to have a plan, but none of that survives the first shot fired. But at least we have a plan, and the problem is they would follow our doctrine, and we
don't even follow it.
And they would be like, well, they should be doing this, but they're doing that. And it's a great way to operate, actually.
Doctrine is a guideline.
Yeah.
I think that was something that was kind of funny. When I went to my CCC, when I became a captain, and I had to go to company commander's course for engineers. That was right during the pandemic, is when I was graduating. And I got put in doctrine. And we were writing a brand new engineer platoon manual. And I didn't get to write the whole thing, but I got to be the final person that kind of made some last edits, gave some last input from a combat engineer side for the survivability, the counterability chapters within that platoon book. And I looked at that doctrine, I was writing it, and then I came back out to a unit and started training. I'm like, F that doctrine, we're going to do this. Yeah. I mean, I'm the guy that had a hand in writing that doctrine.
Yeah.
And then doesn't even follow that doctrine because it didn't make sense for the situation we were in.
The situation dictates the action.
Yes. Doctrine is a guideline.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that is so unique about our military. Like we spend incalculable hours writing doctrine. I'm here at ROTC as an instructor. I'm teaching doctrine.
Right.
But even I teach the cadets, I'm teaching you what doctrine is because it's a baseline for you to which to build ideas from. It's how we communicate across the Army is that we have a baseline of understanding what our doctrine is. But then from that baseline, you can get creative. You at least have a starting point from which to branch off, create ideas and stuff like that. And take that doctrine and apply it to the situation you're in and be that way. And that's what makes the Army unique and, the military in general unique that way.
It allows you to take action in the absence of orders.
Yes.
Which you have to do.
Yes.
You can't be waiting for someone to tell you what to do when you're in the middle of something.
Correct.
So I want to back up a little bit. So you said something that kind of struck me. You said that, you didn't think about the success until you got back and had time for that to soak in. So you had a very active deployment, your first deployment to Afghanistan. Did you find that when you got back, you had time to think about the totality of it and how dangerous it really was? And how did that impact you?
Not in the moment. I think when I first got back, when I first got back, first 2 years, I was just kind of I was still going in the Army. I still knew I was going to do it.
Yeah.
So I didn't really set in. I think I've only come to that realization recently as I've had more time to kind of come out of high tempo and get into this environment I'm in now.
Right.
And kind of give me an opportunity to think on it. But I also I guess I kind of knew what it was at the time. I just didn't realize how big of a deal it was, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
But no, I think I've gotten space and time from that deployment in 10 to 11. It's become more crystallized, like how incredible it was to be a part of that type of a thing. Because my second deployment, I would love to have a do-over because I don't want to remember anything from my second deployment. That can be a throwaway.
Well, let's dig into that for just a moment then. So you got back in 11. So if you were boots on ground October, so you got back like October, November?
I got back in August of 11.
Oh, so you didn't
So
do
they counted our train up month and a half as part of our deployment. So I was on boots on ground for 11 months is what I was.
You.
Yeah.
We didn't get that.
Yeah, so they changed that up. So then from 11 to my next deployment in 16, I was in the middle of a couple of things. So I ended up I graduated. I didn't pick up a job. I just was going to deploy. So I went to deploy. Right. So my return from my deployment was essentially my college graduation.
Right.
So I found a job. I got lucky and I got to work for Wounded Warrior Project, being the alumni manager in Minnesota, covering 7 states, being the point of contact for anyone that wanted to come to Wounded Warrior Project as the first point of contact for anyone in 7 states. And that was really cool. And I got to do some amazing things in that job. But I was in a race between finding a job like Wounded Warrior Project or trying to go active duty. Wounded Warrior Project 1 gave me a job. So I didn't go to active duty because they didn't pull the trigger fast enough and I didn't get the paperwork through, so I stayed reserve because I was still trying to get to active duty. And we ended up doing Wounded Warrior Project. And while I was at Wounded Warrior Project, and actually right after I got back from deployment, I promoted to sergeant first class. So I was still doing the reserve thing, still doing that, doing Wounded Warrior Project, running that. And it was just, went right back into the high tempo stuff. Yeah. I mean, my wife will tell you that I ran too fast because I was all over the place, always gone, constantly doing stuff. I went from deployment right into Wounded Warrior Project, and I love what I did at Wounded Warrior Project because it was the best job I'll ever have no matter what I do in the rest of my life because I had a simple mandate: find them, help them. That was it. That was the totality of my job. And whatever I thought was necessary, I had carte blanche, blank check. And when I say that, there's a time I worked for Wounded Warrior Project, that was what it was. They gave me a $10,000 discretionary decision-making power that if spending $5,000 on a decision was going to get you a water heater because that's what you needed, I could do that. That was my job. I got to give away a wedding once. That was, and I got to call it work. I got to help people have the happiest day of their life, and I got to be there on their worst day of life, and I got to do everything in between and do whatever I could to figure out how to help them. Couldn't have asked for a better job. But I was still trying to go active duty, and I was still and I got a mentor who pushed me to go to the officer's side and get my lobotomy and switch off to the dark side. So I did that.
The disconnect is complete.
Yes, I completely disconnected. But I was also at that transition where I made 7. I knew I was up for 8. I didn't want to leave the line. I was having too much fun with the line. I didn't want to leave. That's where I wanted to be. If I went up to first sergeant or master sergeant, I'm never going back.
Right. You're not a green tab anymore.
I'm not a green tabber anymore. I'm not going to lead soldiers. I'll lead soldiers, but not in the same way that I wanted to.
Right.
So I made the decision to switch over to the officer's side, and I applied for the time what was called the direct commission program. So what I did was basically took a promotion packet, modified it, sent it off, got picked up for a callback to an interview board. It was a lieutenant colonel, 4 majors, and they asked me the silliest questions I've ever been asked. They asked me, you walk around the corner and you see 2 soldiers fighting. What do you do? I'm like, you have a soldier who approaches you and wants to buy a car. How do you describe credit to them? I was like,
wow.
So it was what those questions were, and they're actually board questions that I went back, I knew were coming because I'd gone to the board for this, is they just wanted to see your decision-making process and your critical thinking. I gave them answers. I guess I did well enough. They took my packet, took all of it together, and the way the board worked at the time was it was called the fire and forget board. So basically, I had a position on hold where a company had agreed to take me as a combat engineer officer if I passed this board, however long it took. They would hold it up for 2 years. So the process was packet, wait, board, wait, and then I waited for another 9 months while they would do this packet, because basically what it did, it was like every quarter they did a regional board. If your packet passed the regional board at the last quarter of the fiscal year, they put all of those that passed those regional boards into a pile. They then had a board, reviewed all of them, racked and stacked them all, and then Congress said you can commission X number of direct commissions, and if your number was above the cutoff line, congratulations, you got direct commissioned. And I was lucky enough that I was high enough on that OML, and I got selected. So I went, joined a unit, left the unit I'd been with my entire military career for 13 years at that point in time. I'd been in the same unit for 13 years. Left that unit, joined another unit, went to Bullock, graduated Bullock, deployed 2 weeks later.
Holy cow.
Because I had a buddy of mine. So Bullock for engineers is 6 months by the time it's all said and done.
Yeah.
And so I was gone for 6 months at Fort Leonard Wood. I had a buddy while I was there that I ran into who had been, when he was a team leader, I was his Joe. When he was a squad leader, I was his team leader. When he was a platoon sergeant, I was his team leader. And when I made platoon sergeant, he was my platoon sergeant in 1st platoon, and I was the platoon sergeant for 2nd platoon. So we were next. So we ran into him. He was now the 1st sergeant for this company. And he asked me if I wanted to be one of his PLs, and I went off and became one of his PLs.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was how I got to that one. And ultimately, he ended up not being the 1st sergeant. He ended up being my platoon sergeant. So now I was the PL, and he was my platoon sergeant. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But that deployment.
So where'd you deploy to?
So that one was to Kuwait. So I became an engineer officer, and I went and joined a construction company.
Yeah.
Different mission, different world, different time. Afghanistan's not what Afghanistan was in 10 to 11. It's not this fast-paced thing. It slowed down. We're pretty much just in Bagram and the BGDA, the Bagram Air Group Defense something or other. I can't remember what the acronym stands for.
Just not as sexy as that.
It wasn't as sexy as mission. And we were basically, it was just one of those missions where you were stuck on Kuwait. And there were great people in that unit, but that deployment just wore everyone down.
Yeah.
But it was an example of, I had a leader who to this day, I jokingly tell people, we could both reach our 90s, and if he finally dies of natural causes, you might want to still investigate me for murder, because I might have finally found a way to rid him of the earth. Because every breath of oxygen he takes is a waste of oxygen for the rest of the productive population. If I can say that.
So you didn't like him?
No. His leadership style was just rough. We kind of cajoled around the fact that we didn't like him. That was kind of the biggest thing. Like, to give you an idea of how, an example of how leadership can change things. I told you my first deployment. That Captain Peterson from my first deployment, that man was the leader I espoused to be someday. I hope to be. This gentleman who I deployed the second time with as a company commander, he was everything I hoped to never be. And to kind of give an example of how he was thought of, was he one day brought back a chocolate milk from the DVAC. No big deal, whatever. We all did it.
Yeah.
But he forgot it in his satchel that he had. And it got so hot because it's Kuwait. You know how this is.
Yeah, I know what's going to happen here.
And it ferments and explodes.
Right.
But it exploded and it smells like absolute dog shit.
Oh, yeah.
But it looks like shit. And he was and because he had forgotten he had done it, and we were just in Commonwealth hooches, like my hooch with the other lieutenants was just on the other side of his hooch.
Yeah.
So we smelled it and saw it, and we're like, it looked and smelled like shit. It was legitimately thought for 24 hours. We investigated, could somebody have gotten into our building, taken shit and flung, that was the level of hatred or disdain that there was for this particular gentleman, that was a viable thought process.
Right.
That was so out of left field and so not normal, but because of who he was as a leader, it was feasible, if that gives you an idea of how...
Was he your Captain Sobel, kind of?
Kind of.
Although Sobel took care of people. He was just a terrible leader.
He wasn't that. His biggest thing was, and why I made that deployment, was there was no trust.
Yeah.
There was no trust, and that bickled down to all of us. So we as lieutenants started to stop trusting each other, because it created this toxic environment where everyone was out for each other.
Yeah.
Or everyone was out for themselves.
Yeah.
And the only way you could survive was by getting off base. So there just wasn't a lot of base opportunities to get off base for extended periods of time. So we were kind of trapped, bouncing back. So bored, not a fun mission, time and idle hands. And it was almost worse because my first deployment, you couldn't talk to anybody. You barely talked to anybody.
Yeah.
And my first deployment, it was weird because I ended up getting a sat phone once, and I got to talk to my wife on mission, and it actually was kind of funny because she'd actually gotten a phone call that mission that I had been sent to Walter Reed, and I wasn't.
Oh,
so that
my
was kind of
God.
weird. That's a whole different thing
Yeah.
we can get to in a second. But my second deployment, I had a cell phone 24/7.
Yeah.
My wife could call me on WhatsApp or whatnot, and I could hear about the day's problem, but I could do nothing to solve anything. I could do nothing to fix anything, but I could just hear about all the problems. So
That's not helpful.
it wasn't helpful for anybody.
No,
it
not
was
at all.
So between all of that, it was just a kind of a crummy deployment, to say the least. And I left that deployment, and I came home. I was home for 21 days, and I took an AGR slot in San Diego, California. So for what turned out to be like almost 2 years, I was home, but for all of like a month.
Oh, Jesus. So you didn't move your family to San Diego?
No, they all moved with me.
Oh, okay.
So they
Okay,
moved with
got
me
you.
because I became AGR.
Yeah.
So I moved on to San Diego, and that's when I started my AGR career.
Nice.
But that
And
was
what'd you do in San Diego?
so I was a operations officer for a route clearance company. Is what my official title was. Did that for about 3 years. So my entire career has been, started off as enlisted, did the 12 Bravo thing in a headquarters company. Then I moved to the actual engineer platoon up in Brainerd, Minnesota, from St. Cloud, Minnesota. Did that all the way up from specialist to sergeant to staff sergeant to sergeant first class, all in that unit. And that was a MAC unit, which was a mobile augmentation company of engineers. So we were in charge of mobility, counter-mobility, and survivability. Did all those missions. Then I became an engineer officer, went to construction, and then I went back to the route clearance world. And then I was there for 3 years as a lieutenant. Then I went to Triple C, got my school there, and then I was in Dubuque, Iowa for 3 years. And there I was the plans officer, HSC company commander, firefighter company commander, fell in to cover down on 3 other companies while they were without their company commanders. So out of the 8 companies, I commanded 4 of them in some way, shape, or form. Wow. And then I was also the operations officer, because the operations officer we had was there, but wasn't there.
Right. Someone had to do it.
Someone had to do it. He was there, good guy, liked the guy. It just was one of those jobs where I was kind of doing it.
Yeah.
So he just didn't know what he didn't know.
Right.
So, but it was cool. Yeah. And then I came here, and now I've been here for the last 2.5 years. I got 1 more year. I got this semester and next semester, and then I'm off to the next thing.
So did you come here as a captain then, or you were captain here?
I came captain here. So I came here as a captain.
Okay.
Is what I came here as. And this was supposed to be my take a knee situation.
Right.
I ended up, through a variety of random experiences, ended up being the professor of military science at the University of Michigan for 18 months. With myself and a sergeant first class as the only 2 green suiters and 3 civilians.
That's no small feat or task here at the University of Michigan. This school is no joke.
No, this was it was cool. It was a really cool opportunity.
Yeah.
Got to learn a ton of cool things. I don't know, the video can't show you, but on the boards we've got a war game we started while I was here, so that's been kind of cool. I actually got to take a cadet to the War College to get them certified in war game design from the college.
That's pretty incredible.
So from the stuff I got to do while I was the professor of military science. Now I've fallen back into my assigned role, which is to be the XO for the ROTC program, because we've got a new professor of military science here, and then I'll rotate out and leave at the end of the next semester.
What a great experience, though.
So yeah, absolutely cool.
Wow.
Can't complain. I mean, I've gotten to do some really weird things in my military career. I can't complain about any of the things I've gotten to do. It's been really fun stuff.
Do you find, though, like, if you're the kind of person that seeks those things out, you'll find them?
Yes.
Because there's so much opportunity in the military that people don't take advantage of.
What I have seen, and now in a couple of days will be a 23-year military career, is I always tell even the cadets, I kind of tell them this, is like, I love the engineer branch because there's so much I don't know, and I've been in this branch for 23 years. 23 years I've been doing something engineer, and everywhere I turn, there's always something new I could do. I didn't know it existed. I could do that. I could do this. I could do that. But I think the military's got that everywhere. I get people who ask me, why should I join? I go, the military will chew you up and spit you out if you let it. Because if you come into it with, I don't know what it will do, I don't know what it wants, sure, it'll take advantage of you. It'll take advantage of you in every way, shape, or form. And it does my career. I'm sure it's done your career. But at the same point in time, what it does is, if you don't let it take advantage of you, you can also find ways to take advantage of it. I've gotten certified in suicide intervention and prevention, and I can now teach suicide intervention. I've gotten to do that. I've got to teach here. I got my instructor certification. I've gotten to go to different places. I've gotten to see Germany. I've gotten to see different countries. I've gotten to, live in unique places to see this country in a way that I would have never seen it if I had never joined the Army, in terms of like joining AGR and doing stuff like that. I've gotten to so many weird things that I've gotten to go and do simply because I joined the Army in some way, shape, or form. I mean, would be that between civilian experiences, my job at Wounded Warrior Project. I would have never had that job if I hadn't been in the Army in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
And I got to do crazy stuff with that. The military has so much to offer because no one's experience is ever going to be the same, period.
Yeah.
I could serve with the same people for 23 years straight, and we will both walk away with completely different experiences on how we took advantage of it or didn't take advantage of it. And that's what's so cool about the military is it has you can't even, even when you're in it, you don't even know what it all has to offer.
Right.
Because if you're interested about it, if you're curious about it, if you have an idea, I promise you, if you look hard enough, talk to the right people, there's either a pathway because somebody's already done it, somebody thinks it's a good idea and they'll support you, or there's a program dedicated to just that anyway, and all you got to do is advocate for yourself.
Right. Right. Because, all those different paths you talk about, sometimes you just got to be a pit bull.
Yeah.
But if you're a pit bull, you'll get it done.
You're going to do whatever you want.
Right.
There are people who I've seen who've rode out 6-year careers and done one contract and loved what they've done. Mm-hmm. I've seen people who've did nothing and did a 6-year contract and walk away with salty, and I can understand to some piece, but at the same time, I go, you didn't do anything to help yourself either.
Yeah.
And then there's those that join in and they find something and it turns into a civilian thing they want to go do. Well,
I think to a certain extent, we're all responsible for our careers.
Yes.
When it comes to the military, you will run into people who will submarine you. I mean, you can't. I served 21 years. You're 23 years. You're going to run into that person.
Yes.
But then you're either going to let it wreck you,
or you're going to roll and go on to the next thing.
Yep, exactly.
That's the one weird thing about our job and when the military is we're always on the move.
Yeah.
Because you're normally somewhere now if you're a reservist or a National Guard, yeah, you might stay in the unit for a long time. I stayed in one unit for damn near 13 years. I knew all those people.
Yeah.
When I made Sergeant First Class, they were still people who I knew we were specialists together, and now I Sergeant First Class. So that's not uncommon in the Guard and Reserve. You go to active duty though, you're always moving every 3 years. So you don't like somebody, cool. In 3 years you're gone, or in 2 years, and it might be that it falls when you only got to suffer that person for a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you want to be, you're not going to be stuck in one spot.
Right. You don't have to stay anywhere. You always have a pathway to go to the next thing if you so choose.
Right. So I don't want to forget this. You brought it up, and so now we need to talk about it. So you talked. We're going to go back to your first deployment.
Yeah. Oh,
you talked to your wife on the sat phone, and all of a sudden you're at Walter Reed. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that was it was one of our weird things that happened in our deployment, and one of the other times we got to see a general come down and talk to our company is. Mm-hmm. So at the time in Afghanistan, if your vehicle got hit and you were a MACE test, which was I forget what MACE stood for, but it was like the Mental Agility Cognitive Assessment or something like that.
Yeah.
And basically it was a vocal test where a medic would read off 5 words, repeat these 5 words, and then you do these other here's 9 numbers, repeat these numbers backwards to me, something like that. It was a version of this test. And after every explosion, if you didn't pass the MACE test, if you weren't physically injured, broken bone, something like that, if you had a concussion, you got medevaced. Mm-hmm. So we were getting hit constantly, but we weren't getting injured, but we were getting concussed. So we were failing the MACE test. So what had happened is we would send, if you got medevac, even in country, they still called your family back stateside to tell them that you'd been medevac. Why they were doing this, I didn't understand at the time. I still don't really understand why they're doing it. But basically, even if it was a in-country medevac, just from mission to back to base, to just because you failed the base test, you were considered a medevac. Cool. I went on leave, told my wife how this worked. Hey, if you get this phone call, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. It's just how they do it. Nothing's happened. They're just moving us back to base. And that was the truth because that's what we had experienced. So in this particular mission, my vehicle got hit. And my vehicle, there were 4 of us in the vehicle, and I was an asshole because I was a squad leader, and I never wanted to not be on mission because there was no way my soldiers were going to go on mission and I was going to not be there with them,
right?
Regardless of the cost to myself, however that went. We'd also made a rule in our unit that all the squad leaders, so the E6s and above, we had the MACE tests. So if the medic couldn't get to us fast enough, we could administer the MACE test to give a preliminary report back.
Yeah.
I just memorized the MACE test. My medic was a friend of mine. So whenever they would come to my truck, I'd just be like, what version? They'd tell me the version. So no matter how concussed I was, I could know what I was doing.
Your memory's good.
So I was fine.
Yeah.
So I could stay on mission. This particular mission, we got hit. No big deal. We go through the process. Blah, 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 blah. Ultimately, I'm the only one in my truck that stays. Everyone else in my truck got medevaced. Mm-hmm. Partly, one was because we just didn't have room for anybody else to cross-seat anybody, so we just took everybody and I stayed.
Yeah.
Anyway, we go through mission. Mission continues on. Nothing. We're on mission for I think we were on a mission for like another 2 days. Like, to me, life had continued. No fucking problem.
Right.
We get to where we were going, and this is the one time we had been given a sat phone, and we were given the opportunity. It got passed around, and you said, like, hey, you can call home if you want because we have this sat phone. And this is that first deployment where we didn't. The only time you talked was when you were back on base. So to be able to say hi and talk on the sat phone, which nerd me, was like, cool, I have a sat phone. This is cool. I've never been able to call home.
I'm going to be neat.
Yeah. So, hey, it'd be neat to say hello from a satellite phone.
Yeah.
Because that was relatively new technology, or at least it was the first time a lot of us had seen it. Called my wife, said, hey, I'm home. Hey, it's me. And she goes, Lewis. I was like, what happened? What I hadn't known, and what our whole company was unaware of, was that after my vehicle got hit, that call had gone out. What happened was that unfortunately they had two mix-up happen. So another platoon in a different part of the country had the same thing happen to one of their family members, but their family was actually called and told that their service member had been killed on a phone call, which breaks every policy in the book on how that is supposed to be handled was broken. So in my case, what happened was my driver, who was a gentleman by the name of Cahill, his wife had gotten a phone call that he was in Walter Reed, and they were actually getting ready to send him out there. Well, they had missed up his initials. He was Dan G. Cahill, and it was Dan, I can't remember his actual, but it was Dan G. was the one that was actually in Walter Reed, but they called the wrong Dan Cahill's family. So the wrong family got notified that so that happened. For me, what happened was that my wife got called and said I had been medevaced, and that they'll hear more. Okay, which is what I wondered was going to happen.
Right.
Which would be, I will call us, they'll call you that I'm medevac, I will call you in a little bit because I'm just at the local Camp Leatherneck Hospital. Obviously, I didn't call. She waited a day. She called back. They said, well, if he hasn't called, he's probably gone the long still because it's more serious than that. And that's what they told her.
Oh, my God.
So now they've told her that I've been medevac. Then they've told her that if she hasn't heard, then it's probably more serious and she's probably been sent to somewhere else. And I don't know any of this is happening. Nobody in the unit knows that any of this is happening. So then then she finally calls later and they say, oh, we have no record of him anywhere. We don't know where he is, so we don't know what to tell you. So now it's gone from he's medevac, he's serious, to we don't know where he is. So while in all of that, 48 hours, I'm just continuing mission like that.
You just
nothing to happen.
Fat, dumb, and happy, right?
So when I called, I was inadvertently inserting myself into the middle of something I didn't know was happening. What we found out afterwards is that somewhere, somehow, protocol had broken down, not just once, but 3 different times for 3 different families. Well, 6 families ultimately by the time it was all said and done.
Yeah.
And we had a 2-star come down and apologize to our entire unit. All he said was, do not worry, those responsible have been held accountable. And we're like, Roger?
You don't want to know.
Yeah, but so from my wife's perspective, I was missing and presumed something for a while because they had no clue where I was. So for like 48 hours, I was completely out of the loop. But that was one of our things in our deployment that's kind of weird. So it was a couple of us that got hit up in that one. But that was a weird thing for us to.
That's crazy.
It's another one of those random stories like, how?
Yeah.
So
we've covered a lot, like all the way up through where you're at today, and it sounds like you still have plans to do some more things before you hit that retirement button and go on to the civilian world. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you wanted to talk about?
I think we've hit a lot of it. I think that one thing that's kind of unique, I think that's given me perspective as I've gotten older, weirdly, I mean, so there's a lot of like, I know as you know too, we don't like talking about like our service histories and like our awards and stuff like that. But I think there's one that I think is kind of like a randomly stupid story that I think is funny. So I have 2 Purple Hearts from my time in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
I split a vehicle in half, walked away from that. And then on my last mission, on the RIP mission, I was a gunner and been the first time being gunner and got hit again.
Yeah.
I got hit twice in 45 minutes and then hit in the truck, knocked out, got in the medevac vehicle, got hit in that vehicle.
Oh my God.
That was how that last 2 went. It was kind of a fun one. But what I think is uniquely weird, and I've learned to kind of think it's a comical thing to say, is there's 2 things that are unique about the Purple Heart. Is the day it was awarded and designed, or as an official award, which is February 22nd, 1932. And then there's National Purple Heart Day, which is August 7th. Mm-hmm. My first one is February 22nd. My second one is August 7th. So my 2 Purple Hearts are on the exact days that are relevant to the Purple Heart,
wow.
Which is just, out of all of the ironies of my military career, for a long time, I never spoke that I had Purple Hearts. Like, I hated them.
Right.
I hated them. We used to jokingly call them enemy marksmanship awards.
I was just going to say that.
That's what they were. It was a signal that you had failed to do your job.
Right.
Because in my world, failure to find the ID meant that somebody got hurt.
Yeah.
I had 2 of them. I had failed twice. And I ended up getting blown up 13 times, but only 2 of them counted as Purple Hearts. But those were 2 distinct marks that I actually wear, like the army, like the enemy got me twice. I failed twice. For the longest time, I looked at them as that. As I've grown and got perspective and can make light of them and kind of look at it, it's kind of funny to say that that's a mark that I have in the military, is that A, I got this random thing that not everybody gets. B, to then get them, how I got them, weird. And then to have them fall on those specific days is like, I don't know. I've grown to kind of think it's kind of a comical story to tell, in the sense of like,
oh yeah,
how did that happen?
Of all the strange things,
of all the coincidences,
yeah.
Of all of the things that can happen in a military career, that's ridiculous odds.
Oh, it is. You should buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah, exactly.
On both of those days.
Both of those days, just like keep going for it.
Because A, you survived the whole thing, and B, it was on those 2 days. That's
it's kind of fun. But no, I from other than that small funny anecdote that I think is just kind of funny to tell, is I've been in this, I've had ups, I've had downs, I've had incredible highs, I've had incredible lows, but I wouldn't change my military experience for 1 second. I wouldn't be where I'm at because of it. Because of the military, I went to college. I now have a master's degree. I'm about to get a second master's degree. I've gotten these crazy opportunities. I mean, for the kid that barely passed high school to say that he's got to be the professor of military science at the University of Michigan.
Yeah.
No one had that on their bingo card.
No.
I can promise you that was nowhere on the bingo card in any capacity whatsoever, to say that the kid that graduated high school and joined the Army at 17 and only wanted to be a combat engineer, make it the first sergeant, do 20 years active duty, that kid would look at this, me sitting here today and go, you're not even the same person. Like they wouldn't know how to reconcile where we ended up for what we thought we were joining.
Yeah.
And I think that's the coolest thing I've gotten to say about my whole entire military story, is that I just followed it where it made sense, and I've loved every second of it. Even the low parts, I can't say I love those low parts, but in the grand scheme of things, I've had a pretty freaking good career, and I've had it pretty nice. At the end of the day,
even those hard times shaped who you are, right?
Right. In some way, shape, or form, I am who I am because of these experiences.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would be the same person if I didn't have the military. I mean, that can be cliche, and that's kind of a cop-out answer in a lot of ways, because, well, if I hadn't done that, I'd just be somebody else. I got that.
Right.
Track and all. But it's more of I don't think I would be doing or have as much access to pursue things I'm passionate about, be given opportunities, if I didn't have the experience I've had and the people who I've gotten to serve alongside with, both those that I've worked with, those I've worked for, and those that I've had the innumerable honor to have in some way, shape, or form been in charge of, who've entrusted me in some way, shape, or form to do the right thing. Without them and all their combinations, I wouldn't have had the opportunities I've had, period.
Yeah.
End of story.
Well, and so that's a nice segue with all of that said to kind of put a finer point on it. As people are listening to your story, not people 10 minutes from now, but people 100 years from now,
Right.
because that's the idea, right?
Right.
What message would you leave them with?
So I tried to think about this for a while, and I couldn't think of anything specific other than what I would hope somebody watching this, so to whomever is watching this now, is if you're listening to the story and you've listened to this insane ramble down these different pathways, is that you can walk away with, at the end of the day, soldiers are still human beings. Is at the end of the day, when you're reading a history book and you read like X number of soldiers did this, or X number of people were thrown into this battle, and X number of people were casualties of something like this, or X number of something that relates to the fact that there was a soldier and is every one of those numbers is a human being with a story as unique and as different as my own story. And that as much as we can look at history and you've got quotes like Stalin, 5 people is a problem, 1 million people, and 1 person is a tragedy and 1 million people is a statistic. You got quotes like that all out there. Right. There's a modicum of truth to those, because it's easy to forget that behind every one of those numbers, every time we say we're sending out 100,000 people to go do X, that's 100,000 individual human beings who have come together to make a team, fill their capacity, working at their individual task inside of a larger task, instead of another task, instead of another task, all working to accomplish one mission, which from our Constitution is to defend this United States and defend our form of government and defend our way of life. Every one of those individuals for the last 50 years has volunteered for that in one way, shape, or form. We don't have a draft. Since 1973, we haven't had a draft, we haven't had conscripts. Every single person that you read in that history book, from there forward until, if you're listening to this 100 years from now, 20 years from now, and things haven't changed, then that means in all of that time, every single one of them has volunteered to do this. Willingly, knowingly said that they would do this for whatever their motivation was. And that motivation can be as different from mine as a 17-year-old kid who just wanted to join the Army because that's what you did after 9/11, to the person who joins it because I've met people from everything where this is the family tradition, I did this because it was this or jail, or I did this because I didn't know what to do with my life, to I did this because I just needed to get college and I'm in here for the money and I'm gone. Whatever the reason was, every single one of those individuals that you hear in a story, every single one of those numbers you hear if you ever read military history, if you're reading military history now, that's an individual human being. I think that's the biggest thing I'd want you to take away, is that our stories are as unique as you and me sitting here. We have shared understanding because we've been in the, you and I, we've shared the uniform, we've worn the uniform, there's a modicum of we understand. Yeah. But your individual experience is going to be 1,000,000 times different than my own. Is 1,000,000 times different than the person who's listening to this right now. We might share similar backgrounds, but there's still an individual behind that story. I think that's the biggest thing that kind of want to make sure people walk away with, or that the person listening to this is walking away from, is that it's an individual collective that makes this work for us.
Yeah.
And I think that is unique among the militaries in the world. Is like we all have that. There's a bond. We talk about that, and I know militaries have it their own way, but I really think we have a unique structure here that makes it work just that much better.
I would agree. Well, thank you for sharing that with me. Thanks for spending the afternoon with me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's been great. Appreciate the time.
All right. That's a wrap for this episode of the Veterans Archives podcast. We truly appreciate you taking the time to listen and honor the incredible stories of our nation's heroes. Don't forget, you can catch us every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Wreaths Across America Radio, or stream past episodes anytime on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and as I've said before, any place you can find a podcast, you can find the Veterans Archives podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share our content on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and across all social media. Every share helps us reach more people and preserve more stories. The Veterans Archives podcast is a nonprofit initiative, and our mission is simple: to give veterans a voice and ensure their stories are never forgotten. This service is completely free for veterans because their sacrifices deserve to be recognized and remembered. You want to help? Follow us, spread the word, and if you know a veteran with a story to tell, send them our way. Visit us at veteransarchives.org to learn more about how you can get involved. Thanks again for tuning in, and most importantly, thank you to all the veterans and their families for their service and sacrifice. Until next time, take care, and we will see you on the next episode of the Veterans Archives Podcast.